All right, you're live.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to the December meeting of the Albany County Pine Hills Land Authority. I'm the acting chair for this meeting, as Ms. Mazza is excused today. So thanks for joining us. We'll start with a roll call. Mr. Mazza is excused and Mr. Nigro is also excused. I'm present. Sarah? Present. Alejandra?
Present.
Jasmine?
Present.
Danielle? Present.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I just want to let everyone know, Chairman Mazza asked me to express his deepest apologies. He had a pressing personal matter to attend to, otherwise he would be here. And he, while his vote can't be counted, but he asked me to, as the votes come up, I'll just reflect what his position would have been if he were given votes. Thank you.
Next order is to review the meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was held on November 18th. They can be found on pages 1 through 4 of the meeting packet. We have a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve.
All right, all in favor? Opposed? Hearing none, minutes approved. Minutes approved. We are going to now have public comment at this point. If we have any members of the public who would like to speak, I think we'd like to keep it to about 3 minutes. So we have a large agenda today. So welcome your comment. Please keep it brief. Okay. Sure.
I know you all have gotten.
Excuse me, would you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Virginia Hammer. I'm from the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association. I have some letters to.
Yeah, Virginia, we
We
circulate
have
those
them
to everybody.
Oh, you do? Okay. Okay, so this is, as I said, from the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association. I'm not gonna read it all out, but I have some important information. So we thank the authority for responding to the call of the community to call sales of all buildings until people could write in and a reimagined St. Rose development report was submitted. As the authority is poised to allow the first sale of property, we have some reservations, particularly because these buildings are being sold to Albany County for 64% of their appraised value, significantly less than, for example, Centennial Hall is being sold to the University of Albany. Nevertheless, PHMA strongly supports the sale of the Events and Athletic Center and Home and Library to Albany County. We believe that the county has been clear about the plans for these buildings, and we agree that the planned uses are likely the highest and best use of these properties. We look forward to the new community programming in both of these buildings. However, we still have questions and concerns regarding the plan to sell 3 buildings on Madison Avenue to the county. First Center for Communications, the Administration Building, and Herther Business School. We support temporary uses by the county, yet believe there would be greater value to all if these buildings were put on the market, potentially contributing to our tax base and reducing the burden on city and county residents. As you are aware, the county expressed a desire to purchase these buildings starting in January of 2025, but has yet to give a clear rationale why these 3 buildings on Madison Avenue were chosen. This early expression of interest has made it nearly impossible for any other potential buyers to consider purchasing these highly marketable buildings. We urge the authority to discuss with the county whether its needs could be equally or better met with the purchase of one of the larger buildings that would have enough space to hold the offices it intends to locate in these 3 smaller, unique properties. We ask that the authority pursue appropriate due diligence before any sale of the Madison properties. As Michael Kirsty, Executive Director of the Friends of Chamber Music, stated in the Times Union, the recent announcement that the Sheriff's Office will relocate to Hearst Panel was a big thumbs down for many of us. The center could have been part of an artistic hub with the Nazarene, Kirsty said, especially given the growth of the local film and video industries. Therefore, the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association is pleased to support the sale of the former St. Rose Events and Athletic Center and the Home and Library to the highest account to the Albany County. However, we cannot support the sales of 3 buildings on Madison Avenue, and we believe the highest and best use of each building must be considered before any sale takes place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
This is why I like to go last. Chairwoman, I don't know why comments are so early. I usually have time to think about them. And I came with my positive comment, which I promised you, Kevin. But I want to reflect a little bit on, shall we say it, Dannyland. There's been a lot in the press lately, that's negative about what's going on here. And I'm the county executive's biggest fan. I'm out building support for this project, every day and trying to bring different groups, behind here. But I hear, what Virginia has said, and I understand how the press, might perceive it differently. And so I want to leave you guys with a thoughtful thing, which is how do we make the communication better so that we don't have this perception of Dannyland? What we're doing, what you're doing is absolutely awesome. It protects the taxpayers' dollars. It brings life back onto this campus. It brings community back onto this campus. It is absolutely wonderful. So I sit here and I've started talking with Mary about it. She's asked me if I will write a letter to the editor. I will do that. I really want to figure out how to bring these two things together because I don't believe what the county executive wants and what Virginia is reading are that far apart. Privately, the county executive has told me that he needs to get people on the campus, he needs the sheriff there for the money, and that by doing this, he's not foreclosing, developing those businesses and putting them back on the tax rolls, which is what I hear, Virginia asking for. So it's great to be the guy who doesn't sit on the board and doesn't have to make these decisions, but I really would like to see everyone come together in consensus about how good what we're doing here really is. That said, we handed out the collaborate buttons. See, it was just telling me the county executive still has his, looks at it, which is great. I want to tell you the good news, because that's my typical role at meetings like this. Sue, you were there yesterday. Michael, you were there yesterday at the Interfaith Center. I said to you, Kevin, at the last meeting, he said, you do it, or no, I said, Nick, I think, you're doing such good things on campus, you really need to trumpet them. What is happening there is brilliant. Not only, the chairman is concerned about maintaining the soul of the campus and the connection to St. Rose, and the county executive really believes in those uses. His appointment of the miraculous Deborah Cano to lead that is incredible. We brought the faith leaders back to campus that used to be here. Michael rang the chimes for the first time. You could feel the soul of St. Rose returning to campus. So congratulations, guys, you're doing God's work. Keep doing that. Don't stress out about the negatives, but try to understand and communicate them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
When I got here, I didn't think you were gonna start till 11, so I was sitting at home trying to finish my spelling bee, sorry. I'm amazing, not a genius yet. I'm sorry, I'm Margie Skinner from the neighborhood. I have just sort of 5 quickie comments to make. One is, at one of the last meetings, I asked the consultants, who I guess are gone now, I don't know, but anyway, still here. And if the fabulous materials that you put together for the public meetings could be on display in the neighborhood somewhere. Yesterday, I was told they were at the library, so I swung by the library. What I found at the library was one copy of the 44 pages that is behind the counter, and I can sit there and read it there. Well, it's on my phone too, and I try to play with it and read it. It's very hard to read. I think I would love to get copies of that out. It's not for your budget. Printing 44 pages is probably not a big deal for a few people. If you could print 10 or 20 copies of them, and we could have them. For me, on my no budget, it's a pain in the neck to print 44 pages, and it's a pain in the neck to read it on my phone. So there's very good information in there. Particularly, I was looking at part 6, which is the what to do, And there's a lot of good ideas there. They're hard for me to read, hard for people to read. The details on each of the buildings are fabulous. A ton of work went into that, but we should know that. So if you could somehow, either at Dunkin' Donuts or the library or another space around here where people walk in and out, St. Vincent's Church, whatever, places where people are, if some of those displays could be available, and if there could be copies that people could have or borrow for more than 10 minutes looking at them at the library, I would appreciate that. Other thing, in terms of the whole process, one of the things, each time I went, and I was afraid I was out of town for the third meeting, but I was there for the first two, the priorities, the pictures that they put up, the priorities, to me, I always saw housing, 24/7 occupancy, senior housing, mixed-use buildings. I don't remember seeing a big government sign there, and I just hope that you will get to the priorities that came up at the public meetings for things like 24/7 occupancy, housing, mixed-use housing, senior center. I see that, that's in the works with the building on Western Avenue, but none of the other high priorities that the neighbors and the hundreds of people really that showed up at those meetings asked for. And especially it was pointed out that the more buildings are unoccupied, they will deteriorate. And I'm really afraid on the houses, that the houses, some of them were not occupied for a while by St. Rose, they're not occupied now. We have a housing shortage crisis in Albany. We need houses for families, and these can be affordable houses for families. So I hope that you get behind you what's the priorities that have appeared, the 5 buildings and the sanctuary, which, as I agree with John, thank God for the sanctuary. That was my top priority. And I had no clue as to how to create a group that could run it. And again, county did come up with it. Deb is fantastic. I've known her for years. She's been working on interface stuff for years, and she is the right person to run this. I'm a little dubious about how it's a government entity for an interfaith thing, so I'll let you guys work that out. And I guess that was it, the sanctuary, and but mainly I would love to see the residential buildings pushed higher to the front and some occupancy there, some work done to make sure that people start living on this campus, not just here during office hours and during the day. I love what the rec center is doing, the fact that I looked to sign up for some, there's a zillion programs going on there, that's great. And, but really, I think the housing was a priority, seniors, all that stuff. So that's more than I wanted to say, sorry. Thanks for letting me.
Any other comments? Just a reminder, we do have a lot of agenda, so we're just trying to keep it to about 3 minutes.
Okay, yes, I kind of expected that, yeah. Okay, so I might have a reputation for being somewhat direct, shrouded maybe even a bit unique. Well, I'll try to break that mold by offering some candy. But first, let me genuinely thank.
To the side a little.
Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry. I spoke over here
We
last
want
time.
to make sure you're heard on the
Here.
public comment.
Right, okay. So genuinely want to thank you all for donating your time and expertise in this process, which definitely benefited from your involvement. But, and this is where candor kicks in, sorry, it so quickly kicks in. But I wonder about the net distilled benefit, because on the most consequential and controversial issue, you were not there. Not AWOL exactly, just bracketed out by the power that be. I'm of course referring to the early stage requisition of the 3 buildings across the street. Is what is being installed there the highest and best use? Absolutely not. I would say not even close. The consultants could have told you that had they enjoyed real independence. Might the sheriff's office be the fanciest sheriff's office in the state? And the county seat, the seemingly de facto new county seat, might also win a place in Architectural Digest. But today, and we want to call what remains an arts district, one building and a rump of another? Really? But today we have a chance to, or you have a chance to cauterize this harm. I can mix metaphors by teeing up a mulligan, by voting to extend just the county's temporary use. This is your best chance to flex your nominal independence to actualize it, basically. Otherwise, I'm concerned that this will become something like a hair shirt, as a divided Berlin was for decades in post-war Germany. I think it's worthwhile having a quick summation. After initial trepidation of taking on St. Rose, I think it became quickly clear that the county, which was the only entity financially capable of taking this on, and particularly after the bondholders took a $20 million haircut, and then taking stock of the county's real estate and St. Rose's properties, which I'm told the college actually expected to make $100 million from. All these things together, they quickly realized that this was a heaven-sent windfall. And repaying your bonds, your new obligations are no biggie. So then comes the fixation to quickly pay off these obligations by the time of the State of the County address, when he will be seen as a hero, he told me. In this case for glory, we get the Henry Johnson episode. So what happened at the last meeting, an irresistible chance to preen before supine line of TV cameras. But this media hit turned out to be a misstep, as the print guys quickly demonstrated afterwards. Steve Hughes, Times Union, did a good job there, because it violated process. And there are a few things more sacrosanct in this town than process. Aren't we hamstrung by process? So I would not be surprised if this Henry Johnson announcement proves as illusory as Governor Hochul's on-ramp announcement about a year ago in the very same venue, I think. Chairman Mazza is not here, but maybe Kevin's now looking at his watch or his stopwatch, so I will wrap up.
Thank you.
Of course, this undertaking is more than a math equation. Indeed, this is when the more challenging work begins, right? The renovation of the library, senior housing, which is more acutely needed than college students, although they're certainly welcome, and possibly the integration, complicated integration of a charter school, possibly. It would be helpful in this process ahead, if Dan would grow another layer of skin. So questions are not always heard as criticism, or better to absorb criticism as possible correctives. For a better process, it has to be more genuinely receptive to community input and some coordination between city and county. One can hope with a fresh start and less sharp elbows when other public officials want to chime in. Danny Land needs to see the value of partners. I think you all need that. If we can expect this repurposing to result in a finished metamorphosis worthy of being considered a national model
Thank you.
that we can all rejoice in. Thank you.
My name is Dennis Gaffney.
Sorry, this camera.
Sorry.
I want to make sure you're on that.
Sorry about that. My name is Dennis Gaffney. I've lived in the city of Albany for 30 years. I've served on the Public Library Board. I was president of the board when the libraries were built in the city. I've served in city government for the last 10 years and a few years working with the outgoing mayor, Mayor Sheehan. So I wanted to start by saying I appreciate all the work you're doing. You are in an enviable position, which is to rebuild a neighborhood. It's hard work, but it's exciting. You know, people don't get that opportunity too often. It's a legacy you're going to have. It's going to be a legacy of the cities as well. I know there have been issues with the process, but some points in the process, some parts of the process, I think have been great. The consultant, who I guess is here today, I think has done an amazing job. The 3 workshops were fantastic. 500 responses, I think, on the survey. It really did, the report really did lay out what people want in the city. One suggestion is to have that report presented in a public forum. To have another meeting where people ask questions. A lot of people don't read through those reports. I think it would behoove everyone to have that. Anyway, what the report showed is what people want, housing, people have talked about that, any kind of housing. It's difficult, everybody knows that, but a prime interest. Also, the other interests, green space, this is from your website, community and civic services, cultural spaces, small businesses, all those things benefit a vibrant neighborhood. Another key factor in all your documents, taxable properties are another thing that everybody wants. You know those things. Now, what's on your agenda today? Selling of those 5 properties. I think everyone agrees that 2 of those properties are wonderful uses. The recreation building is fantastic. The fact that it's already running is wonderful. And number 2, is the senior housing, again, wonderful use. The other 3 on Madison, I believe, like the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association, are more problematic. A priority for nobody in the city is to have the county executive office on their property. It was not mentioned in the report when that chart was put together of all the priorities. Nobody said government, county offices, and nobody asked for a sheriff's offices either. There's a police department right down the street from there. You're selling those at below market price. I don't understand that. I don't think they should be. If things are going to be sold at a below market price, I think it should be sold to housing developers. They need the help to provide housing. It's always difficult in the city to do so. It would also help with affordable housing. So it's tax exempt, not what people want. People want everything on the tax rolls in the city where most of the property is not, and it's also being sold at below market value. It also,
Reminder of the time limit.
okay, all right, yeah, I'm just gonna finish up. Those sales of those properties also feed the worst fears people have. One, that this process is mostly controlled by the county and not by this authority. That is a perception that is out there, you know that. This is your process, you represent the people of Albany, and it also feeds the fear that all those signs that are out on the street that list all the departments of the county are going to be coming here. I don't know why those signs are up there. The county does not own these properties. Those departments are not coming here. That's the other thing it feeds, that more of these properties are going to be coming here. So I agree with the Pine Hills Neighborhood Association letter. What I would like to see is you break the resolution into 2 parts. Thumbs up on the rec center and the senior center. In terms of the other ones, I think you should wait on those at least. I think there is no rush. There is no rush. You need time to make the right decisions for all these properties. There's no reason for all the bonds from the county to be paid by February. I don't understand what that rush is. I don't think it's fair that you're being asked to do this. This is not what the public wants. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, moving on to the next item on our agenda, we have our committee reports. Earlier this morning, we had our audit committee and our governance committee, and also the chair of the audit committee. So quick readout from that. We heard from Kevin Testo from Bonadio and Company about the audit process, and he passed a resolution for carrying their audit services for the upcoming year. Jasmine, do you want to give an overview of the?
We just briefly discussed the conflict of interest policy and that all requesting that all the board members turn that in as soon as possible. Ideally by the end of today, we reviewed the attainment of performance goals for the prior year and for the upcoming year. And then the committee annual report, but no resolution the governance committee, just some procedural things.
Great, thank you. Next on our agenda is the CFO report. We have Amy Thompson here to go over the October 2025 financials.
Good morning, everyone. I'll start with the balance sheet on page 9 in your packet. So a quick overview. Cash in the bank as of October 31st is $256,000. This is funds that we have received from the county as reimbursement for expenses. Currently have roughly $4 million in our debt reserve account, which is an interest-bearing account. This was set forth in the bond proceeds. Fixed assets are $34 million, which is the buildings less depreciation, and our long-term liabilities are the $40.4 million for the bond. Any questions on the balance sheet? And then move on to page 10, which is the profit and loss by month. So to date, October 31st, the county signed up to reimburse us with roughly $2.7 million in operating expenses. Interest year to date, which is on the debt reserve, is roughly $104,000. Moving down to expenses, some of the bigger line items are insurance at $835,000, which encompasses the insurance for the entire campus. Total payroll and benefits, $454,000. We have worked hard to reduce the amount of payroll and overtime over the course of the last few months. It's got like a, month to month. Another large expense is professional services. This does include some of the CPL expenses, and repairs and maintenance are $169,000. Now we are having some repairs being done through the heating and whatnot now that we're turning the heat back on in buildings. And another large line item is utilities at $574,000. Any questions on the financials?
Thank you very much. We will now move on to the CEO report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I think this is a very important meeting we had today. And before I get into the meat of my comments, I do want to just remind everyone of the process we've gone through. We had an elected official step up and do something that no one else in this community was willing to do. And that is to save the campus of the College of St. Rose. We have seen in other parts of our state and other parts of our country that college campuses that close, that remain vacant, decay exponentially quicker than anything else that you could imagine. There were many other elected officials who were asked to step in and do something, and none but Dan McCoy, Albany County Executive, stepped up and did something along in partnership with the 39 members of the Albany County Legislature. Part of that process was the creation of this body. And this body decided that they were going to commission a strategic plan for the redevelopment of this campus. And a major part of that plan was going to be public engagement, community outreach, whatever you'd like to call it. We hired expert firms to help us do that. And I was at every single one of them. Many of you here were as well. And they were, I don't think I'd be overestimated to say that they were robust meetings, that there was, feedback and input and an energy that I felt at these meetings that occurred. And all of that information over these 2 meetings and then the final meeting that we held to announce some of the directions was synthesized by our consultants, CPL, and put into the final report, which was presented to this board at its last meeting in November. And contrary to what you may hear in the papers or may hear from certain people, government use was in fact a stated purpose and a desired presence on this campus. And just as a side note, being the person who's talking to the developers. What the county presence on this campus did is probably the single most important thing in getting this campus redeveloped. Because in my mind, it did two major things. First and foremost, it got live bodies back into these buildings. And any of you who know anything about development and redevelopment is that empty buildings decay exponentially quicker than occupied buildings do. As Sue Rizzo, our county controller, can tell you, they certainly cost a heck of a lot more to insure than occupied buildings. Secondly, what the county's presence on this campus did was create what I call development momentum. Investment capital likes to follow other investments. You never like to be the first person out there making the deal. That's why the anchor store at a shopping mall or strip mall always gets the lowest cost. Because once there's one in, it attracts other interest. And since the county has announced their intent to buy the 5 buildings that you're going to be considering a little bit later in today's meeting, the amount of interest that we've got for the rest of this campus is tremendous. And I do think that we are going to be successful in our redevelopment of this campus, specifically along the lines that are of the report that our consultants gave to us. One last thing, there seems to be a distinction in certain people's minds that, well, there's this county out there and there's this authority in here, and everything that this authority does is backed up and guaranteed by Albany County and the taxpayers of Albany County. The principal and interest payments that we, the authority, make on the $40 million in outstanding bonds, that comes from Albany County. Every quarter, we submit an invoice to Sue Rizzo and Dave Riley in the county, and they reimburse us for those costs. Same for all the operating costs of this campus, and they are not insubstantial. This is 27 acres, 71 buildings. This is a big deal. And Albany County, listen, I've been in and around government for 45 years. I have never seen a local government step up and do what this local government has done. Now, you could say, well, I'm just, I'm employed by the authority and by the county. Well, I am employed by the authority and the county. I came back out of retirement to do this. I don't need to do this. So this is a passion for me, and I know it's a passion for our county executive. There's no ulterior motive or hidden agenda, which many have accused of doing that I'm aware of. And I think that the motivations for what this authority has done, for what our county has done, is nothing other than to save this neighborhood, this campus, and our county from what would otherwise be economic catastrophe and calamity. So apologize for getting up on the soapbox for that, but I do want to remind everybody of this process that we've gone through. We've been very measured and deliberate in what we've done, and we've done it out in the public eye. I look with a little bit of humor at the transactions that people accuse the authority and the county of jumping the gun on, and those that they do not. And if we think that this is the case for one type of transaction, it should apply to all transactions. And if it's not, you have to question the intellectual honesty of the people who are saying those kind of things. If it's okay for the University of Albany to buy an asset here, it should be okay for the Henry Johnson Charter School to buy an asset on this campus. I don't know what the difference between the two is. I doubt it's the populations that they serve. Henry Johnson serves black and brown children, right? We want them on this campus. And the University of Albany serves middle income, students or upper middle income students. So, I think we've all got to be intellectually honest in our assessment of what's going on this campus. And one last thing. For the last 100 years, these properties, for most part, have not been on the tax rolls. I firmly expect that many of these properties will go back on the tax rolls. But, there was no tax revenue being generated by this campus before. We fully expect that to happen going forward. So just a little bit on that. So the next item on my agenda, if there's any questions from the board, I'd be happy to respond to those. But if not, the next item on the agenda is the professional services agreements between the Alliance and the authority, and I'll turn it over to Tom to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so before you is page 11 and 12, is a resolution. This is the agreement that you previously approved last year in November. And at that time, we were just sort of ramping up. We were bringing on staff. We had a $12,500 payment per month at that point. Now there's more people here, there's more employees. That's what you're reflecting in. And each year, this comes back to the board. It's an annual agreement. So you will see this each year. This year, there is a resolution before you to amend the agreement, extend it through 26, and the fee is adjusted to that $20,833 per month. So that's the summary of the agenda before you.
Any questions about that? Motion carried. Second. Your roll call? Okay, sure.
Please.
I will vote in favor. Sarah? Aye. Alejandra?
Aye.
Jasmine?
Aye.
Danielle? Next item is the property transfer.
Okay, so this resolution is on page 13 through 21, and it actually goes a lot longer than that, because there's a lot of materials included that have been put out to as part of the board package. So I'll try to very briefly walk the board through this. So this starts with recitations of our enabling legislation, how were we created. We do reference the fact that the county has entered into a financing agreement, which, as Kevin previously referenced, provides the financial backing for all the bonds that the authority has issued previously, and that the counties also entered into an operations funding agreement pursuant to which all of the operating, maintenance, developmental costs, every vendor and employee associated with the authority is paid by the county on a reimbursement basis. And Amy manages that process. It talks about the specific parts of the act, the enabling legislation that authorize the disposal of property. And if you remember back in July, we passed a resolution about 5 months ago now that authorized the negotiation and of a purchase and sale agreement. Again, that's attached and included in this resolution, and also authorized the issuance by the authority of what's called a 90-day, it's an explanatory statement that's issued to a number of statutorily required recipients. And it's posted on our website, it's posted on the Authority Budget Office website. But that basically provides the notice that's required under the public authority law before this type of disposition of property is contemplated. So that was issued in July. That time frame, the 90 days anyways, ran in later October. So as part of the disposal process, an appraisal is required. It's been referenced several times already. The appraisal is included in this board package. It's been public. Another portion, a part of this disposition is that, and we've talked about this before, the authority, when it acquired the property, the tax lots on the campus were not set up as individual tax lots. Many of them went right through the middle of buildings or facilities or, different situations, because at one point, it wasn't considered that the campus would pull off different little pieces. And so as we continue to develop this campus, there will probably be further amendments, but this requires certain amendments so that we don't have a tax line, a property line running through the middle of one of the buildings that we're about to dispose. So those maps are included in this resolution and they're attached. There's also two, what I would call declarations. One is to terminate old easements that are no longer existed. Many of these have existed, when you look at the title report, for a century. And they involve even times before the campus, when two different property owners had required the use of a common access point or something like that. The campus, for whatever reason, probably never needed to extinguish those. There's a declaration in there that removes those, what I would call easements that are no longer of use, and legally would be extinguished anyways, because you now have a common ownership scheme here with the authority. And then the second one is a declaration which basically sets up a management process for the campus moving forward. As we begin to dispose of certain properties or any properties, there has to be, very similar to a homeowners association or a condominium scheme, that would allow for common access. So everybody can use sidewalks, everybody can use driveways, everybody can use parking spaces, that people share in proportion to their property ownership in the expenses related to removing snow or landscaping and keeping this place, as we've tried to do, the authority, in first shape, sort of market condition, instead of letting it deteriorate. And so property owners now, as they come into this, will begin to share in those expenses. And then finally, there's the we're a public entity, so this is what's called an action under the Environmental Conservation Law. So there's secret process that is also included. So both of those declarations and the secret process, those forms are all included in this board package. So there's a lot of material there. The action that you're considering today, and I've said a lot of this already, you're approving the purchase and sale agreement and authorizing the chair, vice chair, or CEO to approve and make any changes or modifications as advised, as prudent, to conduct what's called the disposition, this transfer of the properties, and allowing the execution of such purchase and sale agreement. You're allowing the tax maps to be filed to adjust the boundary line adjustments to allow this disposition to move forward. You're authorizing and allowing the execution and filing of the easement and the property management setup that we've just discussed, where the property owners will share both in the benefits and the obligations, namely expenses, associated with running this campus facility. And then finally, you're authorizing the actual closing to occur in pursuant to those agreements. And that's the action. Staff went through the environmental assessment form that's included in your package over the last few months. That's been filled out, and that can be either found in the package. And that's the, believe it or not, that's the preface for the resolution. I'm going to get into the actions now. So the first part of the action is actually making a determination under SECRA. And that's here before you. It's also included in the environmental assessment forms, but it defines what action is, which I've just gone through: the purchase and sale agreement, the declarations, the transfer, the maps, and also the actual closing. And the authority has looked at that action. And again, many of these uses are well known to be in compliance with the zoning conditions, the zoning requirements, And also, there's not really a change here. These were classified as either office, education, recreation, uses previously. Those same uses, office and recreation, are what's going to be moving forward in these uses. So there's an environmental declaration, a determination here of no significant environmental effect, no significant negative environmental impact. And then finally, you're authorizing the chairman and the chairman, vice chair, and the chief executive officer to move forward with the action. There's a few more things that are included in here required by the public authority law. It lays out the specific identity of each of the properties, 220,000 square feet, 3 acres of land, ballpark. It talks about the appraisal that we've done. It goes through the mission of the authority and how this disposition matches the mission. It talks about the consideration to be paid. We've referenced that previously, $6 million. It also notes that there are no realtors that have been engaged, so there's no real estate commissions, which saves probably about ballpark $600,000 in real estate fees that the authority would not have to pay as part of that transaction. There are no private parties participating in this disposition. This is government to government. There's a finding under the public authority made law here that it's within the purpose, mission, and governance statute of the authority, and it finds no reasonable alternative to the transfer to the county. So that's the basics. I'm sorry for going on, but it's important to get it in the record. And this resolution, again, authorizes the chair, vice chair, and CEO to basically execute the disposition. So subject to any questions, that's the sum and substance of the resolution.
Are there any questions from the board? Any motion? Okay. Second. Moving on to a vote. I approve. Sarah? Aye. Alejandra?
Aye.
Jasmine?
Aye.
Danielle?
Madam Chairman, Nick Mazza asked me, I know his vote can't be counted, he asked me to, said that he was also in favor of this, as did John Nigro, that whose votes can't be counted in this, but just wanted to let the rest of the board know.
Thank you very much. Moving on to the next item in the CEO report is the management agreement update.
Yeah, just very quickly, at last board meeting, we approved the resolution to authorize the authority to enter into a maintenance agreement. We are moving forward with those discussions with the county staff and council, and we anticipate, I believe, probably in the January timeframe that would take effect. But that's just a report from the board. It's continuing to move forward, and that will take effect in the new year.
Okay, next item on the agenda is other business. I believe we have the 2026 meeting dates on the last page of the agenda for everyone to be aware of. Is there anything on that?
Madam Chair, I would request the board consider going into an executive session so we can discuss some of the real estate issues that are involved in the development.
We have a motion to enter executive session.
Right, and the reason would be to discuss the potential sale or disposition of real estate, especially which would substantially affect the value thereof.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?